1 in 3. That's how many American men will face physical violence, sexual assault, or stalking by an intimate partner. 1 in 3 women worldwide will endure physical or sexual abuse, most often by someone they know. But domestic abuse isn't just bruises. It's manipulation, it's fear, it's control that seeps into every part of your life. I'm Ingrid Dutton, and I survived it. Then I created 1 in 3 so no one else has to suffer in silence. Each week, we break that silence together. Occasionally joined by survivors, loved ones, and experts, we talk about the pain, yes, but also about the healing, resilience, and the fight to reclaim your life. This podcast is more than awareness, it's a lifeline. And a reminder, you are seen, you are heard, you are never alone. Search for 1 in 3 wherever you get your podcasts, because every voice matters and every story deserves to be heard.
According to policyadvice.net, approximately 17 people per 10,000 experience homelessness each day. The number of homeless in the U.S. is estimated at 552,830, which is 0.2% of the American population. And then if you also want to see a map of the homeless people in the United States, you can go to usich.gov, which is the United States Interagency Council on Homelessness, and it goes by state. So the state with the most amount of homeless people is California with 161,000. And then next is New York with 91. And then Texas with 27. No, I'm so sorry. And then Florida. Florida has more homeless people than Texas does. Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
Florida has 27,487 and Texas has 27,229.
Good morning.
Good morning, sister.
You're more caffeinated than me, I think.
I'm actually not caffeinated at all. I'm so tired. But how are you doing?
I'm good. We have a lot to talk about, so let's make this short talk.
Sweet. Yes. So we're going to talk to Elise,
Yes.
who is going to talk to us about the homeless people and homeless in Chattanooga and what she is doing and her new podcast
Called This Is What I Know.
So check it out.
I'm psyched for this vacation. I'm psyched that this is the last thing I'm doing before going on vacation. This is so fun.
Yes.
It's also fun to be like the guest and not the host. So I was like just chilling. I'm like, man, I'm chilling. I'm just like here.
If you're expecting professionalism,
oh gosh, no.
You're in the wrong podcast.
No way.
I just realized I forgot my bottle of wine, so I will be right back.
Oh yeah, go get it.
Her bottle.
Her bottle of wine.
Not her glass. Her bottle.
Must have been a long day. Something like this with my sister, I think we'd kill each other.
I'm surprised. We've had a few, not moments like when we're actually recording, but we've had a few moments like beforehand where I'm like, okay, fine. I'm just going to cancel it. We're just not going to do it.
We're just not going to do it.
We're done.
Real bonding experience. I mean, the one my mom and I host, it's so much fun. Like, you know, we have the lead up and then it's always fun. Like, cause we'll talk beforehand and usually we've only had a guest a couple times and, you know, and then
recording.
I did.
It is recording, I think. Yeah.
I started as soon as I came on. Because I never knew. I don't want to miss anything good.
Oh, I know. I do that too. It drives my mom crazy. She's like, have you started recording? We're just chatting. I'm like, yeah, but this is where like the gold is. Like, this is where like all the intros come from. Because it's usually my mom being like, hold on, I got to take my hearing aids out so there's no echo. And like the podcast is about like generational differences. And so it's just like, hold on, the boomer's got to take her like hearing aids out. And it's usually me talking her through like hooking up her mic and stuff. And so it's pretty funny. Yeah, it's pretty good. But yeah. And then there was one time where I actually had to mute her because her her audio was messing up the guest's audio. And so I was like, our podcast is called You're on Mute. And so there was one time when she just started talking and I had to say, Mom, you're on mute. Like you have to unmute yourself if you want to talk. And she was like, well, isn't that funny? It's the whole thing of the whole title of the podcast.
Where'd you grow up at?
I grew up in the first suburb north of Chicago in Evanston, Illinois.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So right on the north side, like we lived, or I grew up, I guess, on the southernmost block. So like if I crossed the street, I was in Chicago proper. So
gotcha.
It was a really, really rad place to grow up. I loved it. I couldn't go back now. I've totally acclimated to milder winters and having like nice nature around. I don't know if I could go back to like the city, the frozen city. So Evanston is like the first suburb to the west of Evanston is Skokie. And Skokie has the largest population of Jewish folks in America outside of Brooklyn. And so like it's a huge Jewish population there. So, I mean, I grew up like going to bar and bat mitzvahs, like going to Seder dinners, going to Passover celebrations. One of our closest family friends, who's like basically an aunt to my sister and I, her family is Jewish, and we would she celebrates Christmas with us. It's kind of this tradition, it's a long story, but, and so we always kind of celebrate Hanukkah when they're here celebrating Christmas. And so, I met with, and this actually kind of segues into the homeless issue, but, I met with, this guy named Michael, who's the director of the Jewish Federation of Greater Chattanooga, to get him on board for this Faith and Housing Summit that's happening on May 2nd. And we met on Good Friday at a Starbucks. And he comes walking in and he's like, well, imagine this, a Jew and a Christian getting together on Good Friday. I was just like, oh, I miss this.
The last time that happened, it didn't have such a good outcome.
It didn't work out as well. Yeah, I did manage to rope him into coming to that summit. So I and I'm like going to call the rabbis when I get back and see if I can get some of our synagogues involved. This housing summit is going to bring together a good amount of like mainline Protestants and Baptists. So
how many, well, yeah, let's just segue right in. So how many people are coming to that?
So we actually had, I guess I can explain like what it is. So
yeah, that's probably a good idea.
I think one of the things I've noticed, and this is everywhere, it's not a Chattanooga problem, but when there's something as big of an issue as homelessness, there's always like so many organizations or churches or communities kind of focusing on that problem from different angles. And it's such an all-encompassing issue that you can focus on so many things in terms of like, well, we'll do a feeding ministry, or we'll focus on veterans, or we'll focus on getting folks into rehab. Like you can do all these things. And when you kind of hyper-focus in that way, it starts to feel like you're kind of on an island, like providing services, and you're the only one, working in that way. And so just as I kind of got more and more involved in, homeless advocacy and outreach in Chattanooga, I just realized how many people felt like they were doing it all by themselves. And so one of the goals I've had for the last 2.5 years is to kind of create more of a network and create kind of a hub of the wheel. So like, if someone calls Trinity and needs a hotel room for a week and we don't have the, resources to do that, I know that churches XYZ and Synagogue A and, this organization, they do have hotel funds, and I know who to call immediately or who to tell that person to call, instead of them just going back to the phone book or going back to Google. Because literally there are service providers and social workers who the last resort is just to tell people start calling churches. Like
I actually literally told someone that 2 days ago.
Yeah, exactly.
I
like
really
to
did.
Start calling churches. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you hit gold, and sometimes you call 20 places and they all say no. And so just by being involved, I kind of say I've got my hand in a lot of different cookie jars. And so, there was a Baptist pastor named Gus Hernandez who brought this idea to do basically like a summit with the city. So to kind of bring the faith community and the city government together, which is a big like Baptist tradition thing. I mean, if you think about like the civil rights movement, that was essentially Black Baptist preachers and Jewish folks, really. I mean, there's an incredible partnership between the Black community and the Jewish community, especially in the South. But they were kind of the ones that were plugged into local government and plugged into social justice. And so it's a really cool tradition to kind of see that kind of continue. But so Gus kind of brought this idea, and he was kind of asking folks around if they wanted to do the summit, and the city was kind of going back and forth on it. And then the mayor ended up throwing a luncheon for the faith community. And I somehow got on the list. I like wiggled my way in there. And basically the next event was the summit. So like the luncheon was kind of a sit back, listen to different presenters, talk about housing possibilities. Mayor Kelly talked about kind of, his dream of like affordable housing in Chattanooga. And then so the summit is going to be a little more of like, okay, what are our action steps? So we invited, I have a contact list of like over 300 faith folks from interfaith, like kind of across the board all throughout Chattanooga that got invited. Any nonprofit that works with homelessness, we invited them. And we kind of put the cap on 80 people because we're providing lunch. And within 48 hours, we sold out. And it was insane. Like we were like, all right, we'll invite 80. We'll have enough lunch for 80. But like if 30 come, we'll be pumped. And we're at like 105 people.
Oh my goodness.
Are coming. And, it's it's been a frustrating, like to be on this. At first I was brought in by the people planning it as like a consultant, like, okay, you're the boots on the ground. Like what should we focus on kind of thing. And, my primary focus with what I'm doing is like the people literally living in tents, like people literally living on the street, like not the housing insecure, not the folks who are staying with grandma until they can find their own house, which are that's a very important population that needs to be housed as well. But for me, like from my outreach experience, like going into these camps and stuff, like I have realized that Chattanooga is so short on shelter beds, any kind of transitional housing, any kind of supportive housing. Like we're just expecting people to go from the street into an apartment, and which is the housing first model, which is ideal when you have the units, but Chattanooga doesn't have the units. And so where do we put these folks while these units are being built? So that's what I wanted the focus to be. Cause I think, Mayor Kelly's grand vision is to build all this affordable housing. He wants Chattanooga to be affordable, which is great. But my question is always affordable for who? And so, because Chattanooga is barely affordable for like me right now. And so, that's everywhere. The housing crisis is nationwide, but, so my whole thing is if we're only focusing on like low, middle, and higher, what about the people who are like living on 11th Street, which is where one of our biggest camps in town is, because it's right next to the shelter and the soup kitchen, and those folks are about to get kicked off of that property where they are, all over the city. Cops tell the homeless community, go to 11th Street, you can't camp here, but go camp on 11th Street. Well, just 2 days ago, the cops were kicking them off of the 11th Street area. So it's like, okay, well, where do they go now? So that was what my focus that's what I really wanted the summit to focus on. Because if anybody can fill in that gap left by government efforts, it's the faith community. Like that's where I feel like the faith community should fall in, but I got overruled by the other planners, and it's more about how can churches get involved in like unit development, like actually developing affordable housing, whether that's by selling a section of their building or remodeling a section of their building or selling a portion of land or, that kind of thing, which is a worthwhile effort for sure. I just don't think it's as possible as some of my colleagues think it is for a lot of churches in Chattanooga. Trinity couldn't jump in on a project like that. Like, it just, it's just not possible.
Well, and the time, how much time would that take? Like if you're talking about remodeling or even if it's like a piece of land.
Oh yeah. These are year-long projects.
Right.
At best, like, there's two or three big affordable housing projects happening right now that literally just broke ground One of them, so a big story that happened, or a big story that came out, was the city government bought a hotel on Airport Road, and they're going to remodel this hotel, and it'll be 100 units of transitional and affordable housing. That's great, but the conservative timeline for when it'll actually be like move-in ready is late 2024. So what do the people who are dying on the streets do for 2 years? You know, like where do they go? So that's my big like mission is, you know, kind of making the streets either more survivable or more easily survived, or starting to push to develop shelter housing and things like that. Because Chattanooga has 136 year-round shelter beds. And I think the last count of homeless folks, and these are folks like sleeping on the street, this is not counting people living in their cars or couch surfing, was like 680.
Wow.
So there's over 500 people with nowhere to sleep except for the streets every single night in Chattanooga. But the summit at its core will be an incredible networking opportunity for faith leaders, nonprofit folks. We've actually got a couple members from Trinity who are coming, which is really cool. Because I put the invite out to the whole church, because I feel like I've been doing all this homeless work, but like very much on the side. So I'm kind of trying to like get Trinity involved in what I'm doing and hopefully kind of get folks on board. But I also don't want to like make people feel like I'm doing that instead of pastoring. So like it's a tricky balance, but because I see it as part of my call as a pastor to the community. But you know, it's very easy to get like sucked into it and just kind of get pigeonholed in it. So, cause it's such a big issue. So, but I'm excited for the summit. I'm excited for it to be over. And then I can, it's been a lot of like crazy planning. You know, as crazy and frustrating as like the homeless advocacy can be, like, it's such worthwhile work. Like I talk with other people who are kind of in it every day, and we always talk about how the wins are so few and far between. So it's almost like, why do we do this still? But when the wins happen, they're so big, and it's just like, okay, that'll gear me up to like keep going a little bit more and try to get that next win. So I'm hoping the summit is a win. I'm hoping it gets some like-minded folks together and getting some faith communities kind of cooperating and working together. And I'm one of the co-founders of a new group. We're not really sure what we are yet, but we call ourselves the Transformative Housing Advocates of Chattanooga. And so I'm hoping to make that more of my focus once the summit is over, and kind of see if that group can get some funding and start getting shelter space possibilities going, because there's just too many people on the streets with nowhere to go right now. And it's a problem everywhere, but it's really bad in Chattanooga. Like it's significant. It's a significant problem for sure.
Do you guys have plans for post-summit? Like, are you going to meet routinely or just keep in touch?
Yeah. So the plan is to basically, we're having people kind of fill out a survey at the end. And so one of the things that I'm hoping to come out of it is every faith leader that's there, I'm going to have them mark what homeless services they provide already, if any. It's one of those things where it's like, if you don't, that's fine. If like, you know, well, we don't really have a service, but we give people money for hotels when we can. I want to know that. Like, I want to know all of it so that I can kind of create a resource guide for churches and faith communities. It'll be primarily churches, but so we know kind of who's doing what. So like if someone calls, you know, First Pres and they need food, they'll say, well, we don't really have a food pantry, but Trinity and Hickson does, and they'll bring it to you, you know, kind of thing. So that's kind of my hope for it. And then, you know, we're kind of hoping people will like find others that are interested in kind of what front of the war they want to fight on, right? Like, and so you know, if people really do want to tackle these like affordable housing, like developing affordable housing units, they can find, you know, their buds to do that. If other people really want to focus on outreach, you know, they'll find people to do that. And so then after the summit is done, the planning group will gather all of that information, all that data, and basically send an email out to all the groups and say, okay, you said you were interested in this. Here's some possible next steps. Kind of go for it. Like we really want this to lead to something instead of just a bunch of privileged housed people, sitting in a big room in a fancy church talking about the homeless, and then nothing happens. Right. So, but yeah, so the plan is to kind of basically get people grouped so that they can start some kind of project, but we don't want to like micromanage the projects. They need to happen organically or they won't survive. So that's kind of what we're hoping.
I've seen, I worked with the homeless in Orlando, and then when we moved to Washington, like this tiny little island, and same problem. We had homeless and a lot of substance abuse within the people who were homeless, but no shelters. There was literally, we had a shelter for teenage youth, and that was it, like nothing for adults. So the churches actually stepped in and said, hey, well, they rotate. Like, I don't know if it's every other day or like every 2 days, but like the two or three churches in town will take to capacity like 20 people. Or whatever, a night. So at least they have a warm place to stay.
That's
and
amazing.
It was absolutely fantastic. And like how you said, how there's a gap in services, like absolutely there's a gap in services, and the churches there stepped up to see it. And then I was also thinking, when you talked about the housing first model, like it's great to have the actual apartments, but then you need the case managers to help.
There has to be support services. Yeah,
absolutely. Freaking which is a lot of people and funds and like time spent into that. And then my third question is, the first two weren't questions. I'm sorry. They were just statements.
That's cool.
Question. So you're actually doing a podcast, right? On the homeless population, right? Okay.
Yeah. So it's so cool that you're still in Washington.
No, I'm in Texas now.
You're in Texas now. Okay. Moving all over the place. So there's a great podcast that actually came out of Olympia, Washington, called The Outsiders. And it was it was like a year-long thing where they looked at kind of this initiative the city of Olympia was launching for the homeless. It was basically an intentional encampment that was meant to kind of get people stable in these temporary shelter. Like it was tents at first, and then they had to move to more kind of substantial structures. And then hopefully kind of graduate people into like a tiny home, and then they would graduate from the tiny home to an apartment unit. And so this reporter out of Seattle kind of followed this and did this great podcast about it. It's like a 9-episode thing. I listened to it on one stretch. And as I was listening to it, I was like, a lot of this stuff wasn't news to me, but when I go so now that I've kind of, this sounds so like, look at me, but now that I've kind of like made a name for myself in Chattanooga as like someone who is like cares about this, like this is my thing. I'm getting asked by a lot of other churches to like come speak to their folks about like the homeless issue in Chattanooga. And so because if there's one thing about me that everyone knows, it's like I'm loud and I'm talkative, like I won't stop talking. And so like I make it known when like I'm like pushing something. And so
that's why we have podcasts.
Exactly. Exactly. So I can just keep talking and people listen. Great. If not, like, cool, I'm going to do it anyway. And so I was like, I love going and giving presentations in person and like telling stories from when I was like doing outreach every day and things like that. Cause I learned so much and it was just 10 months of it. And so I was like, you know what, we need this, like, we need this in Chattanooga. Like we need to do it. And right now we have the right mayor. Like Tim Kelly, I think truly cares about it. Like homelessness was something like a platform of his to kind of help end homelessness. It was a big thing. I don't quite think he expected the kind of pushback he was going to get. And I also think he's thinking so big picture that he's forgetting about like those people who are falling through the cracks and like, I love that he's focusing on building these affordable housing units, but if they're not affordable for me, they're surely not affordable for, Carrie, who lives in a tent on 11th Street. Mm-hmm. And so, I started this podcast and it's called, Here's What I Know. And I called it that because, in the homeless community and in homeless advocacy, no one knows the full story. right? Like, so when we were out on outreach, we'd go to a camp and someone would say, hey, did you hear like Terry got arrested? And we like, what? Terry got arrested? And they're like, well, that's what I heard. Or like, that's what I know. And then it's like, we go to the next camp and they're like, Terry didn't get arrested. Terry, Terry got a ride to Nashville and is living with his cousin now, kind of thing. And it's just like, everyone knows, a little bit of these things. And so I don't want to, I've cared about this issue for a long, long time and worked in it in smaller capacities, but I've really been like up to my eyeballs in it for only 2 years. And so I don't claim to be an expert in this issue at all. I mean, there's people who have dedicated their lives to like studying this problem and what causes it and what are the best solutions for it. But I've learned a lot really quickly. And so I feel like, if with the right guests and the right kind of storytelling, we could draw attention to this issue in Chattanooga and then kind of get people to push the city to put in place some policies and kind of some more quick solutions to this, very like in your face problem. And then, kind of get people in a better position until those affordable units are ready, because it's going to be a long time. And so, because a lot of people, like, some of the biggest like stereotypes or I guess, like Mythbuster thing I like to do is I hear a lot of like, well, some people want to be homeless. That's just not true. I think some people have gotten really good at accepting their circumstances or really good at convincing themselves that that's all they deserve. And, but I guarantee you, if you go up to any homeless person and say, I've got a place for you, and you're going to have a social worker that's going to check in on you once a week, and I got you a mattress and a table and a bowl and a spoon, they'll take it. Like very, very, very few people will say, nah. And if they do say no, it's probably because they've heard that kind of promise before and it fell through. And so, just, I think, because, there's always like, the more you know about a situation, the more you kind of are, faced with it. I think the more empathy that you have. And so just kind of trying to bring some stories to people, luckily with my outreach work, I still have relationships with a lot of the homeless folks that I worked with that I can call or go to their camp and find them. And, I'm going to see if some of them would be up for being interviewed, kind of tell their story. How did you end up out here? What do you feel like is keeping you out here? And then, also interviewing a lot of the service providers that I'm still friends with, who are in it every single day. They know exactly what barriers are there. Because I think a lot of people don't realize how hard it is, for someone to get back up on their feet. I mean, it's not an easy thing. Like there's one, so I do have a story. It's kind of a long one and it's kind of a bummer, but we'll get
great.
So,
so excited.
Well, all of our stories are all happy.
I haven't cried listening to this podcast ever. Well, so this story, just like I can kind of look back on it now and laugh, because like we laughed about it as service providers in a way. I mean, we were all enraged at this guy, but like, so, there's a big river walk in Chattanooga, which, has a lot of different bridges that it goes over and things like that. And there's this one section that goes from a very like hoity-toity part, the kind of art district on the cliffs, on the bluffs or something, I think it's called. And the walkway goes across Veterans Bridge. And under the bridge at the time, there were 4 little sections. And under each section, there was a homeless person living there or storing their stuff there. And one woman in particular complained to the city so much about the trash under the bridge that finally Public Works decided they were going to go and collect this trash. And so we knew the guy.
Stuff?
It was people's stuff. Yeah. And so it was this guy that we know, we'll call him Larry. It's not his name, but we'll call him that. So we knew Larry, like as outreach workers, we knew him. We knew that was his stuff. He's a hoarder. Like you will see Larry going around downtown Chattanooga with a buggy, picking things out of the trash. Like that's just what he does. But what's crazy is where his stuff is, he has it perfectly organized, like flattened down cardboard boxes. He has boxes of books that he like stacks and puts up. And so there was one part of it directly under the bridge that was like incredibly organized. And then there was another part that was just trashed. And like, I mean, it was like knee deep stuff. Like you did not want to go in there. Well, not only did the city say, hey, homeless services department, go out there and push everything down to the street. So our whole department, because at the time I was working as an outreach worker part-time for the city while also working full-time as one of the pastors at Trinity. And so they told us like, all right, get your gloves out, get some masks. You're going to go and you're going to pull all this stuff down to the street so Public Works can come by with their little claw and pick it all up. And so they were making us do something that we had been fighting. Like we were saying to these folks, don't do this. We will lose our relationship with Larry if we are part of destroying his area. And we ended up like under threat of, getting fired, basically. We all had to go out. And I mean, it was pretty bad. I mean, there was a lot of stuff and there was a lot of really things we shouldn't have been breathing in. Like we really should have been better protected. Like we were all like kind of with like a bandana over our faces and like glasses because of all the stuff like flying through the air. And there were a couple people that came from like a church or some community thing. They heard about it and someone gave them the go ahead to like come volunteer to help clean up under these bridges. And so this one guy came and he brought his own rake. And at first he was being like incredibly helpful and was, raking all this stuff up. He was vigorously like raking this stuff down. Well, then he went after someone in another section who is a guy that we also knew. I'm just going to call him Michael. We never got his real name. He told us a different name every time. Young guy, like known mental illness, never got out of his little corner. But we knew him and we brought him bags of supplies and we would check in on him. And Rake Man, that's literally what still to this day, I don't know who this guy is, but I know he had a rake. So we call him Rake Guy. Rake Guy goes charging up to Michael's area. Michael is there sleeping. And Rake Guy starts raking Michael's belongings down this, the concrete slant. All of us go running over and we make like a human chain in front of Michael. And we're like, you can't do this. Like, for one thing, we only have permission to do that quadrant. And this man, you are literally destroying his property by doing this. And he's like, this isn't property. This is garbage. Like, this guy needs to get out of here. He can't be under here. Everything he needs is down on 11th Street. And we were like, if that was true, he'd be down on 11th Street. Like, but 11th Street is, granted, like everything you would need is right there. The health clinic, the soup kitchen, the shelter when they open up, for cold weather, things like that. So that's why a lot of people go down there. But a lot of people also don't go down there because it's dangerous. There's a lot of drug use. There's a lot of violence because it's just a large concentration of people who are at their wits' end. I mean, I always tell folks, desperation makes you do bad things. And so, nobody would be a perfect angel trying to survive on the street, right? Like one of the most docile, sweet men I've ever met in my life, Benny, who was living, he's passed away since, but he was living behind the Walmart near Signal. And he was the nicest guy ever. And 2 weeks after I met him, he got arrested for trying to rob the Goodwill truck. Like he was just desperate, like he's a good guy, but he was just desperate. And so like we ended up like pushing this guy back, but he was furious. I mean, he was like coming at us, like threatening us with his rake because we were so many clocks in this house. Hold on. I'll pause so you can edit it out. I hate that my mom podcasts in here. I'm like, go somewhere where there's not a clock. Anyway. So rake, man. So this guy was just like furious because he was there to help, but at the same time was furious that these people even existed. So it was like incredibly frustrating. And I feel like there's a lot of people in Chattanooga that feel that way. They feel like, oh, well, there's one soup kitchen, there's one shelter, that's got to be enough. And it's just not, it's just not. And so I think I've always been a big believer in transparency. And so, in every capacity. And I think the city government of Chattanooga needs to be more transparent about its plans. They're really good at throwing out big numbers, but they're not really good at throwing out how they're going to do it.
They might not know.
They don't. I mean, they've said that. They've said, this is our plan. We're still not sure how we're going to make it happen. But, so it's like, from my point of view, it's like, okay, well, if you don't know what steps you're going to take, what are your ideas? Or like, what do you need help with? Like, how can we as voters, do our part to kind of help you make this happen? But, I think a lot of people would be really fascinated by the stories, why people became homeless, why they're still homeless, and what's keeping them there. I mean, the amount of folks who are on, a lot of my friends who are housing navigators, a lot of folks on their caseload are just sitting at a camp with a Section 8 housing voucher in their back pocket, and they have nowhere to go because there's no units or no landlords are taking Section 8. And so, it's because it's something where you're going to see every side of humanity in that community. And that can be a really scary thing to like face, or to decide to help, or, to be a landlord and you've got 2 units and you're going to open them up to folks who, have a record, or, might have a substance abuse issue. I mean, that's a scary thing. And I get that, but it's a whole lot better than people dying on the street, because no one deserves to die alone on the street. And that happens every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's completely tragic. I mean, I have a list in my phone of people that I've personally met. Some I know better than others, but I keep a list whenever I hear that someone has passed away, and I put it in my phone because I never want them to be forgotten. Like, someone should remember their name and remember that they existed, and, probably lived a pretty great life before life kicked him in the ass. And so, I just think we can do more. I mean, as society as a whole, right? But I mean, the city of Chattanooga, especially, we can certainly do more. There's enough people that care. And so basically, very long answer to your question, but yes, I'm doing a podcast called Here's What I Know, focusing on all these things. I've done 1 episode so far. And it's basically like an introduction to the issue. I think it's called Glossed Over Glossary. Because, a lot of times, I think in any specialty, when you're in it, you throw around the acronyms and the phrases that just everybody knows. And then you kind of bring in someone who's not quite as plugged in, and they're just like, what are you talking about? And so,
right. Did you say the pastor who's actually hosting the summit was like, I'm lost with, or is not?
Oh yeah. So the pastor who is like in charge of the venue, who really wasn't part of the planning team, but I mean, we're using his space. He was at one of the planning meetings, and he literally was like, I think what you guys are doing is great, but I have no idea what we've been talking about for the last 45 minutes. He's like, I am so lost. He's like, so you might want to dumb down your agenda a little bit. And I was like, you know what? You're right. We probably should. And so yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where if you live and breathe it, if it's something you're looking out for, you learn quickly. But if it's something you just kind of care about, but you're not really in it quite yet, there's a lot of those little terms and phrases and things that people will throw around that you're just kind of like, I don't know what that means, but cool. I guess. So,
actually, I listened to that. And one thing that I never really thought of when, I'm one of those people where I think of the homeless, I think of the people who are on the streets and, don't have an actual place to stay. I never thought about the couch surfers or the people. I guess maybe I did think of the people in the cars.
Yeah.
But to me, in my mind, that was such a temporary thing. Like maybe they slept in their car for a week or something. I just
Right.
never really thought of it as a long-term situation.
Yeah. I mean, and there's people too. We have an incredible amount of people living in hotels. Like the Chat Inn on 23rd Street is essentially a glorified homeless shelter. That's where a lot of people go because it's cheap and the management kind of knows who their clientele is. But yeah, I mean, and that's kind of a big difference between like acute homelessness and chronic homelessness. And so, acute homelessness is typically going to be those couch surfers who like are down on their luck, but like, all their stuff is in one place and they can bounce back pretty quickly. They might be homeless for 6 months, but they have a place to stay, right? They have a place that they can, put an address on. Or someone lives in their car for a week or something like that, or a hotel for a week. But it's the chronic homelessness is what you see on the street, people living in tents, or, even just sleeping where they fall. There's been such a massive amount of what are called sweeps. So when cops or public works or something will go through a camp and just kind of say like, you got to get out of here, and they'll sweep the camp. And so literally if there's somebody wants to do something with that land, they will take bulldozers and just bulldoze whatever is left. And like people have gotten everything from a 20-minute warning to a 24-hour warning. There was a really large camp on Workman Road up until October of 2020. And so I started working at the city October of 2020. So the week before I started, everyone at Homeless Services of the city of Chattanooga is going about their day, and they all start getting frantic phone calls from clients on Workman Road who are saying, I just got woken up by a bulldozer coming through my tent.
Oh my God.
And so they literally, like, this was a well-established camp. There were people that had been living in that area on that camp for like 10 years. I mean, there was one couple who had like a dining room table in their tent. Like it was a established place. And just the landowner just decided, I'm going to develop this and these people need to be gone. And of course, the folks who were there with the bulldozers and everything said, oh, there were warnings posted, this and that. But if there were warnings posted, people would have seen that. We, as outreach, our job was to go tell people they were going to have to move, like the police department or public works would call us, or the mayor's office would call us and say, hey, that camp down on, by the airport, needs to go. Can you guys go talk to him? Because we'd rather it come from us. It got to a point where I felt like an eviction officer, and I talked to my supervisor at the city and I said, I can't do this. Like, this is not why I got into this work. People see us coming and they think it's bad news, and that's just not the relationship we need to be building with these folks. But the Workman Road camp, they displaced 50 people that day. Like it creates a refugee crisis within your own city. And so, and like right now, over 120 people are going to get displaced from 11th Street with nowhere to go. And so it's a huge problem. It's like when a little kid wants to make it look like they've eaten something, but they haven't. They just push their food around a plate. Like that's what's happening. Like we're just pushing these people around the plate that is the city of Chattanooga and saying, hey, look, we cleared this one area. It's not a problem anymore. Well, those 20 people went somewhere, and so they're getting better at hiding. And then that sucks because outreach workers and service providers can't find their clients.
Them.
And it breaks the trust. Like it, like how
huge.
you're talking about before.
Big time. Yeah.
Which is so hard to build.
Big time. I talk to a lot of cops who, because if we see a cop, I still just as a person, not even as an employee of the city anymore. But if I see a cop talking to a homeless person, I pull over and like, I walk up and I'm just like, hey man, I work with homeless outreach, what's the problem? Kind of what's going on. And because they need advocates, if anything. Mm-hmm. And so, and a lot of the cops we talk to are like, some of them are fantastic. Like they really care. They're really empathetic. I helped this one guy who was just passed out drunk on the sidewalk. And I found out his name was John, but that's all I got out of him. And I was like, I don't want to call the cops. I don't want this guy arrested for public intoxication. Like, but he needed something. Like, he literally was just face down in front of the Chattanooga Choo Choo. Like, I had, like, people were gathering around. Like, I was like, all right, John, we gotta go. Like, I need you to get up, buddy. And he was just like he couldn't do it. So I did call the police station. And what was crazy, and this just shows some Christian privilege in the South, other people had called the police station saying, there's a homeless guy here. He's passed out drunk. Can you guys send some police? And by the time I pulled up, they were like, we called them like 20 minutes ago. And I was like, that's crazy. Let me call him again. And so I said, hi, this is Pastor Elise Anderson. I heck yeah, threw down the pastor card. Those cops were there in 2 minutes. Like, the dispatcher lady was like, oh yeah, we'll send someone right away. They turned the corner like 2 seconds later. And what was really cool was this cop got out and he was like, oh my gosh, that's John. Like, he knew exactly who he was. He was like, John, what's going on, man? I thought you were going to see your family in Florida, right? Like, he knew this guy's story. And, I wish I had more of those kind of experiences when it came to kind of mediating or the police against homeless. But for the most part, the homeless community does not trust cops, they do not trust anybody with any kind of badge on, or a clipboard, like it just takes a long time to build that trust, and it can be shattered so quickly. The guy, Larry, whose stuff we destroyed, because that one lady complained about garbage on her morning walk. We had to go tell him about that. Oh my God. I wish I knew who that lady was. I'd be knocking on her door. Like, oh, it makes me so mad. So we were the ones that had to go find him and like tell him that his stuff wasn't there anymore. And he screamed at us and like has not talked to an outreach worker since. And that was over a year ago, probably. And so, because a lot of these folks have just been constantly let down by the system, or let down by these things, and just are their hands are up in the air, and they're like, well, what the hell are we supposed to do? I mean, that's the question I get the most, when I'm talking to these folks, is like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, what do people expect from me or from us? Like, we're just out here trying to survive. And it like people have said, it's getting harder every day. And it's a really crappy feeling to stand there and say, I don't know. Like, I don't know what to tell you, and then you basically have to walk away, and just hope for the best and say, here's my card. Call me when you find a new place to stay, and I'll try to bring you some supplies. Cause they can't take anything with them. I mean, people think like, oh, if they get asked to move, they just pack up their tent and they leave. It's like, well, they're not out for a weekend camping trip. Like, right. This is by the time they're settled, the original tent is probably not really an actual structure anymore. It's now like tarps and pallets and cardboard and rugs they found, or pieces of furniture. And you can't carry that. So whenever a camp is swept and displaced, those people have to start over from scratch. Like, they can carry maybe whatever they have in a backpack or a shopping cart, and that's it. And now, I mean, Chattanooga now has an ordinance against sleeping under bridges, so they can't go under bridges to start over either. Which was something that, oh man, was I pissed when city council passed that.
I saw that.
Ooh, man, Mayor Kelly heard from me. My email is apparently notorious. I've never actually met with Mayor Kelly. He never actually responded to my email, but through folks I know at the city, my email has been talked about in some of his like staff meetings. It's like notorious now. And I'm like, yeah, it is. I'm like, you will know me. like,
you will say my name.
You will say my name. But yeah, I did get him to answer one of my questions. He did a big housing announcement recently on the steps of City Hall. And I was there with a bunch of other people. Like, pretty much everybody that has their ear to the ground when it comes to homelessness or housing was there. And he took questions, and I wiggled my way like to the center. I was like right in front of him. I my hand shut up. I was like Hermione Granger. I was like, I have a question. And he kind of like would look at me every time and then like look away and find someone else. And then finally after being ignored for the third time, I kind of went like, ugh, like threw my hands up, and he was like, actually, hold on, ma'am, you have had your hand up quite a lot. And I was like, yeah, I do have a question for you. So he did call on me, and I asked him, because he basically said that they now have a plan to, for basically $100 million are going to be invested over the next however many years in affordable housing. And the city has 33 of that, like in hand, but they don't know exactly where they're going to get the other, 67. So, my question for him was how much of that money is going to go towards shelter development and supporting housing for people that are below 40% of AMI, which is area median income, which is, how basically how affordable housing is determined. Anything above 50% of the area or the AMI is considered affordable. Well, if you're not pulling any income, there's no housing for you. So or if you're on disability, there's no housing for you. Like there's plenty of clients of ours out there who they pull a disability check, they have income. Like they pull in maybe $1,000 a month, but it's either live in a crap apartment and not be able to afford food, or, live out in the woods with a decent shelter if you can stay on that land and be able to buy your food for the month. So people are making really, really hard choices like every single day. And so when I asked that question, he was like, yes. Next question. It's just like, for real? Like he was like, short answer is yes. Yeah. And just kind of like moved on. And I was just like, cool. Like, I'll just believe it when I see it, I guess. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to there's a lot of, I don't know if there's just a lot going on right now, or if I feel like there's a lot going on because I'm actually paying attention, but it feels like there's a lot going on in homelessness right now. And so I feel like this podcast is coming at a perfect time to kind of document it, stuff going on in Chattanooga, in the wider state of Tennessee. Tennessee state legislators just passed a bill basically making it illegal statewide for people to camp or sleep on federal land or public land. So that's like all of it, like unless it's somebody's backyard. So they basically made it illegal to be homeless. It's a felony charge now. Like literally, like if a college student, like this is how pathetic it is. If a college student passes out drunk on federal, state, or state property now, they can get arrested for a felony because it's now illegal to camp or sleep on that land now.
Wow. And you mentioned that in your episode, because then you said now try getting a job or a house when you
with a felony. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's insane.
And then the fees that are required. And so now like you can still get arrested for not paying any past tickets, any bonds
it's
or
a
whatever.
$50 fee. It's a $50 fee attached with the charge. And I'm like, I don't know a single person on the street right now that could pay a $50 fee.
Right. One thing I did think that was amazing, like there's, I know a lot of people in my circle that have never worked with the people who are homeless or people who are or like impoverished or anything like that. For a lot of them, I would say 3/4 of them believe that people who are lower socioeconomic status or who are homeless, they have a negative connotation with those kind of people.
Oh yeah, big time.
Which is horrible, because I have found like in my dealings with people who are homeless is like they have such a sense of community within them. Like I'll watch his back. Like how you were saying about like, oh yeah, I know about Larry is, oh yeah, he got arrested. No, he didn't get arrested. Like everybody does know everybody, and everyone has like a piece of looking after everyone else. And I think that's just one of the most beautiful things. Like one of my coworkers was telling me about this lady used to always show up in the emergency room at Parkland Hospital where JFK went to. And I guess like she would show up, she wouldn't be suicidal, but she'd always be like, she liked to smoke crack. And so she would show up as a side effect of that. And she was never actually suicidal because her will to live was her group. She's like, oh, I have my group tonight. And it was her group that she would sit around behind the 7-Eleven and pass a crack pipe to. So it was amazing that there's such a sense of community between these people.
The city even relied completely on donations for whatever they were handing out to people. I mean, there was no budget line for outreach supplies at the time. I think there's a small one now, but so if we only had toilet paper to hand out to people, that's all we handed out. So imagine like as if you're a homeless person in a city and a city representative who is working for the Department of Homeless Services comes up to you and says, "Hey, all we have this week is toilet paper." Like that's a terrible message. Like to send, like this is it. Like this is how much your city cares about you. Like this is all we could find. And it's a little bit better now. The outreach workers have kind of formed a cooperative of sorts. So they kind of share supplies. And so outreach workers from the city, from homeless healthcare, from the community kitchen. I'm in it kind of as an individual, but also Trinity's kind of in it too, because we do the food and things like that. But there's outreach workers now from Erlanger. They're trying to have nurses go out with them to do some kind of medical care when they can. So there's definitely things in the works, but we need to be a little more urgent about some of it than hey, there's going to be units in 3 years. Good luck, everybody. Hang tight.
Y'all have a VA there too, don't you, in Chattanooga?
There is a VA, yeah.
Are they getting involved?
They were really heavily involved for a while. So like the Homeless Services Department in Chattanooga started, I think it was like 7 or 8 years ago that department was formed because Chattanooga decided that it was going to end veteran homelessness. Mm-hmm. And so the department was created and a lot of these services happened and they worked with the VA as far as I know. I don't know as much about that history, and they did get down to a functional zero. So it's one of those things where there's never a functional zero, right? So there's never going to be no one on the street, right? Like there's always going to be kind of this cycle, this revolving door of people. So in the work of homeless advocacy, you hear this term functional zero, which basically means there are less people that are homeless than can be housed in a 6-month period. Mm-hmm. So basically it just means we have units, we're getting people into housing and we're getting them the services that they need to sustain that housing. And so Chattanooga at one point did reach a functional zero of veteran homelessness, but I can promise you that is not the case anymore. Most of the people I see served in some way. And that's sometimes the hot button topic that gets people to care. When I tell folks, especially other veterans or anything, like, half the people I hand stuff out to are veterans. I mean, that's what pisses people off the most. Like, and if that's your hook, cool. I'll take anyone on the team that I can get, So, I mean, there's and it's crazy too, because a lot of the veterans that end up homeless are women. I mean, there was one woman in particular that she was just the greatest like human being. Her name is Missy, and she was a veteran. And she actually had money available for her at the VA, quite a substantial amount, actually. Like she would have been just fine. Like she could have bought a house with the amount of money that the VA had for her. But she was so traumatized by her time in the military, she refused to take it. And so she like, gosh, talk about like making lemonade out of lemons. She had this incredible setup under a bridge on the south side. Her personal goal was to get other women off of drugs. And so we called her the mayor. Like she just knew everyone. She knew where everyone was. If we needed a question answered, we went to Missy's camp and she was always there. She was the sweetest woman. Just dropped dead like a year ago. Just went into her camp to get something, or went into her tent to get something and never came out. She was not a user. They did find like marijuana in her system, but she used it for her PTSD and her anxiety. And she had been struggling too. Like her camp had caught fire because some folks she was letting stay there caught their tent on fire and it exploded a propane tank. And so her PTSD, like I was there that day. We ended up going to that camp like right after the fire department had been there because she was under a bridge and she had dug these trenches so that the water would drain out. And so seeing the ground around her tent wet was really weird. And we were like, what happened? And she was like shaking. She just came and like clutched onto us. And she was just so triggered and traumatized, and then died like 4 months later. And I mean, when I tell you, every person that worked in homelessness in Chattanooga was rocked by Missy's death. Like when my friend called me to tell me, she was like, "Are you sitting down?" And I was like, "What? Like, what are you talking? Like, what's happening? What do you mean?" And she was like, "Missy's dead." And I was like, "Like, are we talking about the same person?" Like, no one believed that had happened, because she was such a stable, solid person. And her funeral actually made the news because we had her ashes. We convinced them to release her ashes to us, the city department. And she was on my coworker, or she's now just my friend, but at the time, my coworker, Casey's mantle. She was in Casey's living room for a long time because we didn't have a place to put her. Like, we couldn't bury her anywhere. She didn't have any family to claim her, which happens a lot. A lot of people end up just in unmarked graves in a potter's field because no one will claim them. One woman I knew who died had an ex-husband in Chattanooga that was doing well for himself, and he refused to come claim her. So she just got buried. But so with Missy, because she was a veteran, we were trying to get her into the National Cemetery in Chattanooga, and she was 2 months. Yeah, she was 2 months shy of the amount of time needed to be put in the cemetery. But like, she got deployed, like she served. And I mean, we called senators, we got anyone involved that we could. And eventually we got permission, and she was buried in the National Cemetery in Chattanooga. And like, they put her funeral announcement like in the news. And when I pulled up to her funeral, I mean, there was over 100 people there. Like, bunch of, like, all the veterans came out. There were a ton of veterans there. The only thing that kind of pissed me off was they had the Navy chaplain do the service, but like, he didn't know her at all. And so it was kind of one of those things where it was like, we could have found someone that knew her. I mean, I knew her better than he did, and I didn't even, I knew her well, but, not as well as someone else we could have found to do it. But so there was part of it that felt almost like a publicity thing. But at the same time, I was glad. I was like, people need to know that unless these folks have advocates, they end up lost. Like, whether they're still alive and they're lost in the system, or they've passed away and they're just lost, with their ashes floating around different social workers' living rooms, or, or they're buried in a potter's field. Like, and so I was glad that it got that much of attention, and she deserved that. I mean, she was truly like just an incredible human being. Like, I have a framed picture of her in my office, and I make sure that, if Missy was actually there looking at me, she'd be proud of what I was doing, because she'd tell me if she wasn't, that's for sure. But no, she was the coolest. So, those are the kind of stories that, even though it's sad, like, everyone still misses Missy. Like, you can't talk about Missy with anyone and not tear up. But, like, seeing her get the like funeral she deserved, the recognition she deserved, was one of those wins that like keeps you in it. So yeah, that's crazy.
That's kind of why I asked about the VA, because homeless veterans is such a hot topic button.
Oh yeah,
I know that people donate to VAs and they can't accept donations. Like, it has to come from like special places. So if you work with like their homeless program that they have, and they get all these donations, they get, Elise, here.
Yeah, right. Please take this from us. Yeah,
we cannot.
No, I know.
Absolutely accept this.
I should call the VA and see, because I think at one point they were gonna develop their own outreach person that was gonna team up.
One?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm not sure. There's another outreach worker in town who would know better than I do, because he does have connections to the VA. But yeah, I mean, and I think, like, especially with Missy's story, because the VA is an incredible resource, but there are times when, and I mean, this can go down the rabbit hole of like PTSD and our veterans, but like, Missy was so scarred by what she went through in her time. She refused money from, I mean, she had like a lot of money at her fingertips that she just said no to, because she she wasn't processing her grief and her trauma. And, you know, so it's like, that just goes into kind of the gaps in our mental health programs as well. I mean, and she could have even been housed without that money, but she felt so connected to that community and being that community's leader that she told us all the time, she's like, I'd feel so guilty if I got out of here and these other girls didn't, you know, like, so that was like her passion to stay, you know, and so I think like, it's going to take a lot more than throwing money or, you know, your leftover jackets or your leftover pantry stuff at it. Like, it's going to take, you know, developing services, training, you know, trauma-informed training for our cops. You know, just, it's going to take a lot of things, but I think, like I've said a couple times already, if more people cared and asked for these things, you know, leadership would be more inclined to make it happen, because there are people that want to do the work and there is money to pay them to do it. You know, we don't like, I love that they're filling potholes, but, you know, I'd rather 50 people on 11th Street get, you know, an apartment than that pothole get fixed that I can drive around on my way to my house. You know, like, it's just, it's kind of like, you know, I wish our priorities would be shifted a little bit more.
That is a population that is near and dear to my heart too. So I totally respect what you're doing. It's awesome and fantastic. And please, dear God, keep doing it.
Yeah, no, I plan to. It's, I honestly wish I could do more. Like, it never feels like enough, but,
oh, well, yeah, because it's never ending. It's like
right. Exactly. It's like the job's never done. Right.
Exactly.
So, but, you know, everyone always says, I want to work myself out of a job, and that would be great. You know, to work yourself out of this, out of this extra work. But no, we're going to do it, and we're going to get more people on board. And I'm excited about Trinity and our little outreach ministry that we have. I think we're making a name for ourselves in that. And, awesome. Just kind of keeping people fed until we can get them housed. That's kind of the goal. I really appreciate you guys. I mean, I know it's late for everyone, but I appreciate y'all having me on and letting me plug my little Here's What I Know podcast. I think it's on most services now. And hopefully when I get back, I'll work on episode 2. It'll probably be an every 2-week kind of deal. A lot of it's just like when I can get a hold of people and when I can get it edited and when I'm not doing the other podcast with my mom. So
Bridget, we'll plug that one too. You're on Mute.
Yeah. You're on Mute with Pastors Elise and Mary. It's so much fun. I mean, I have a blast with my mom either way, and she's hilarious. Like, most people who listen to the podcast just fall in love with my mom. But yeah, it's 2 female pastors. I'm a millennial and my mom's a boomer, and we just kind of shoot the shit and like talk about different topics and how it affects us and how it affects us differently or the same, or, you know, and we have a lot of fun. Even people who aren't like churchy, right? Like, seem to really like it, you know, even though we do talk a lot about church stuff.
I'll agree with that. I'm not very churchy, and I like it.
You like it? Yeah. Cool. I love that. Yeah. I mean, some people are like, I want to go to whatever church your mom's at. I'm like, as someone who did most of my life, I can agree. She's phenomenal. So that's a fun one too. You're on Mute. Yeah, that's a good one. And we actually did do an episode on homelessness and ministry. I think it was our 4th episode. So that's a good one. You'll hear me cry in that one. Missy had died pretty recently when I did that one, and so I was like a shell of a human being when that was happening. But yeah, no, that's a great episode too. Like, she talks a lot about one of the ministries she helped start here in Columbia, South Carolina, and she's a badass too. I think I got some of my motivation to help this population from her. She's been doing it most of her ministry, and I've been sitting there with a front row seat watching her do it. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, no, I'll plug those 2 things. And if you're in Chattanooga, come to Trinity. We're pretty cool. Thanks guys so much. I love what y'all are doing in your podcast. So I'm excited to be in it.
We'll have to have some more crossover events, because this was fun.
This was fun. I had a great time.
This was a lot of fun.
This was awesome. Yeah, I got tons of stuff I can talk about.
Have a fantastic cruise. I hope you have a great time.
Thank you. I'm so pumped. But
super excited.
But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to seeing all the other episodes y'all release. This will be so much fun. Y'all are doing way better than I am. I feel like every day it's like, here's another one, and I'm like, oh, I've done like 1 episode in 3 months.
Yeah,
but All right, y'all. We'll have a
right.
great night.
Okay.
Yes,
Have
good
fun on
night.
the
Thank you
cruise.
so much.
Of course.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank
Thank you
you.
guys. Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much, Elise, for all of your useful information and telling us about your new podcast, and then throw in that plug in for your established podcast.
It was a blast talking with you. That's for
It
sure.
was so much fun. And again, those two podcasts, You're on Mute is one that Elise does with her mom. They're both pastors, and they talk about like the bridge between millennials and boomers. And then there is This Is What I Know, which is the topic that we just talked to you guys for a really long time about.
Mm-hmm. So check it out. And thank you all for listening to us.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to subscribe, share, talk to everybody about this super fun podcast that you love.
Mm-hmm. And hi, Kara.
And Debbie.
She made it 3 times now.
We need to put a disclaimer on so she doesn't drive off the road. She hears her name. And hi, everybody who works with Kara. Now you're on too.
All right.
Anyway.
Thank you, everybody. Have
Okay.
a great week. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
If you would like to reach out to us or submit your situation, please contact us at anothersituationpodcast@gmail.com or find us on Instagram at Another Situation Podcast. We're also on Facebook at Another Situation.
Another Situation is produced and edited by Point 5 Pinoy. Music is written and performed by Tim Crow.